Okay, we're good.
Okay, welcome to the Borrowville School Committee Special Meeting, 6:10 PM, August 25th, 2020. Roll call of members present. Terry Lacy,
Present.
Dot Carden,
Present.
Sylvia St. Pierre,
Here.
Don Allen,
Here.
Alex Leclerc,
Here.
Sean Bozan,
Present.
Chairman Broussard speaking. If you would allow, please, the Justin Allen to announce the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag of the United States
States of
The
America
States of America
and to the
and to the republic for which it
one
stands,
nation, under God,
one nation,
indivisible,
under God,
liberty,
indivisible,
justice
law.
for
with
all.
liberty
Okay,
and
and
justice
justice.
for all.
Thank you. Item 2, fiscal year 2021 budget discussion vote. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Salida.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Broussard. Before we begin, I just want to make a note that we've reached the capacity of our limit for this Zoom meeting at 100. It's unfortunate. I apologize for that. But if any folks who are there in the audience, if you're getting messages to family members or friends that are trying to get in, they can watch this live streamed on our YouTube channel. And I did put a link to the YouTube channel on our district Facebook page. So they should be able to at least view the meeting. And then as soon as we're done, I will have the link to the YouTube meeting stream uploaded to our Facebook page as well. So apologize for that confusion. So item 1 is a discussion about budget, and I want to give a little background on where we are with the budget and the reason for this discussion and possible vote and where we're heading in the coming weeks, week or so. So earlier today, I participated in a conference call with several superintendents and a senior staff member from the governor's office. There are lots of moving pieces at the state level. Things are continuing to develop each day. One item that was discussed is the governor's office and the Department of Education would like to see districts as they finalize their plans really and prepare to reopen, that they're on the same page across the state as much as possible. There's some concern that if we move to a full distance learning model prior to the governor's announcement, which is scheduled for next Monday, we may be opening ourselves up to possible legal action from advocacy groups that represent special populations of students. And that appears to be the case in Warwick, where several groups have contacted the Department of Ed regarding legal action or potential legal action. So if our decision does not follow the recommendations of RIDE in the governor's office, we would not be supported by RIDE in those cases. So I wanted to be clear about that. And also, it was further mentioned that state and federal funding could be impacted if whatever decision we make about reentry, and this is ultimately all related to a budget concern, but that our state and federal funding may be withheld if schools do not fully reopen, and the governor recommends that. Finally, I have concerns that the governor on Monday could issue an executive order, which would require us to open either in a hybrid, full, or partial model. And if we make a decision tonight about our budget and about our distance learning plan, then we could be in direct conflict with the governor's order next week, and that would put us in a very precarious situation. So for all those reasons, I'm recommending that we table the vote on the budget, and we table the vote on the distance learning option, and have a special meeting on Tuesday of next week, which will be a day after the governor makes her announcement. We could schedule that as a special meeting. We would open it up to make sure we have the correct Zoom account so that we can have more than 100 folks here if we need to. And we would then vote on the budget and the reentry plan then. But did want to explain a little about the budget before we move on any possible tabling of this or voting of this. So our
Dr.
budget was.
Skeeto,
Yes.
can I interrupt for 1 second? I'm sorry to be rude. We're still going to have public comment this evening, right?
Yes.
So I just don't want folks who are on the phone to think they should leave because we're not going to allow public comment.
No, great point. I think it's important to hear from the public in prior to us making a decision. So I appreciate you pointing that out. So earlier this year, our budget was originally approved by the town council and recommended by the town manager. It was approved in the amount of $35,152,838. So that amount included an estimated increase in state aid of between $1.1 and $1.2 million. As we stand currently, the state of Rhode Island has not adopted or approved a budget for fiscal year 2021. Typically, normally this occurs by July 1st as the new fiscal year unfolds and begins. It appears that the state legislature is waiting for the federal government to approve the next stimulus package prior to voting on any type of state budget. So since we had anticipated an increase in the state aid of between 1.1 and 1.2 million, we built our budget around this number. Again, that's what was approved. But we all knew that it was a possibility that we may have to make revisions if the budget didn't come to fruition. So since the state has not approved the budget, our state aid has been basically levelly funded up to this point. We're now into the second month of the new fiscal year, and we have no idea when we're going to see or if we're going to see the anticipated increase. So this has led to a problem at the town level, since they built their budget around the anticipated state aid increase and obviously around the schools as well. So last week, Chair Brazard and I presented to the town council to address this. School department would need to cut the budget dramatically to address this shortfall in state aid. At this point, we're unsure when the state budget will be passed, but one way to address the budget issue is to open the year in distance learning. We would have savings from both transportation and non-certified staffing that would allow us to reduce our budget. And then we would be asking for an increase of roughly $300,000 from the town council rather than the 1.1 million or so. A couple of other things related to budget that I wanted to mention. Many people have reached out and asked about funds that the governor mentions in her weekly briefings. And there's two pots of funds. There is ESSER money, that's ESSER. It's federally funded money that could be used through an application process to defray costs for fiscal year 20 due to unanticipated expenses that were caused by COVID. So we did apply for those funds. We did receive those funds. I'm not sure if we actually received them yet, but we got approved to receive those funds. And that amount was somewhere in the neighborhood of $380,000. And that covered accrued costs from last year. Things like technology increases and other supplies. However, the same amount that we got approved for in those ESSER funds was withheld from our last payment of state aid. So there was no net increase in those funds whatsoever. Lastly, there's another additional federal funding source that the governor often cites as it's related to the CARES Act, the Corona Relief Fund. And again, that's an application process. We have to apply for those funds. And I believe we've been approved, earmarked for somewhere in the neighborhood of between $400,000 and $500,000 on those. But we have to apply for those by the end of October. It has to be it has to be purchases that can be sustained after the funds run out. And again, similar to the ESSER money, those funds cannot be used to support anything in your operating budget. It can't be used for any normal operating costs. So lots of moving parts on the budget, but just wanted to kind of get that out there where we are and where we need to be. So currently, in short, as I think everyone on the committee knows, but for everyone else listening, the budget that was approved has now hasn't been revised yet, but we're working on revisions due to the fact that our state aid appropriation that we were anticipating of an increase of $1.1 to $1.2 million appears to be levelly funded at this point. There is a possibility that, that somewhere down the road, the budget gets passed and what that number will look like or what that state aid number will look like at this point is uncertain. So that led us really to where we've been the last week or two, and the decision to seriously consider the option of moving to a distance learning model to start the year based on the availability of staff and resources that we would need to really open safely. So that's the budget update in a nutshell. I'll be happy to take any questions from the committee if you'd like, but I would recommend that item 2 on our agenda, the budget discussion in vote, is tabled until a special meeting next week. And I'll have a couple of updated budgets for you to discuss and a couple of opening plans to discuss, and then the committee can vote on the appropriate action at that time.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we postpone the vote on the budget until next Tuesday's special meeting.
I have a
Second,
motion- I have a motion to table by Dot Carden and a second
by Sylvia.
by Sylvia. Discussion? Dr. Salito, will you still be having any discussion at all for item 4 this evening?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I would request, Chair Brazard, if we can take the agenda out of order so I can address that and then allow public comment. We will not, I'm not recommending that we vote on that tonight, that be tabled as well. But if we could take the agenda out of order, I may be able to answer several questions that may come up in public comment prior to opening the public comment.
great. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you have an opportunity to explain what our distance learning looked like leading up to the January 1st date. Any other discussion? Having none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Having none, we'll accept the motion to move item 4 to the next position.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
A motion by Sean
Donison.
Donison and a second by Dot.
Or me. Doesn't matter. We both said it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Salito?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brazard. So before I begin, I'll go over a little bit about our distance learning plan and try to address some of the comments that I've had over the last week, that we've had over the last week or so. And there seems to be some confusion about what actually our distance learning plan is and why we are sending letters out now. And I'll address all those things. But to start, I just want to say that this process over the last several weeks has been painstaking. It has been something that we've struggled and wrestled with daily, from the time we come in the morning to the time we leave to go home in the afternoon. It's been a difficult decision. The target keeps moving and changing, as we all know, in this new environment that we're in now. There are more questions than there are answers, and when you finally get an answer to one question, there are 10 other questions that come up, and it's been a vicious cycle of information and mixed messages, and so many uncertainties around what school could and should look like in the fall that it makes it difficult to make choices that are informed, that are supported by data, and most importantly, that are ensuring the safety and the health of our students and staff. And I don't want that to get lost in any conversation that we have. Our number one priority in this is to make sure, excuse me. Apologize for the weather alert in our scanner. But our getting back to my point, I don't want it to get lost that our number one priority is always the health and safety of our students and staff. And we need to make sure that we can provide the resources that are appropriate and that can ensure the safety of our kids and our students and our staff members. And it's been a lot of difficult conversations. We all know in education that our number one goal is to have in-person teaching and learning. and that in-person teaching and learning is much more effective than virtual learning. But if we can't provide the resources to do that safely and to make sure that our students and staff are going to an environment that is healthy every day, then we can't take that chance. So that's really at the heart of all of our decisions, and what we have to keep in mind, that we want to provide the best possible education for kids and provide the environment that allows them to be safe and healthy, as well as our teachers. So just to clarify a few things from our distance learning plan, I'll start with the dates. A lot of feedback from folks who were concerned about September to January being off. Well, you're going to do distance learning for, all the way through to January. That letter, the date of January 1st, September through January 1st, was used really for budgetary reasons. But the plan is to bring back targeted populations of students throughout the months from September building up to January. So we would start with our high need special education students and move to bring additional special needs students back. And then if that is done successfully, we would transition to some of our youngest learners. Kindergarten would be the next group. And then our transition grades, like grades 2, grade 6, grades 9, and possibly grade 12. So we would build that in over time with the ultimate goal of having everyone hopefully be back in schools by January. So it's not that the building would be empty from September to January in this model. Again, that timeline would be for our highest need special ed students to be back within 2 weeks of the start of school, to be back before the end of September. And then other groups would gradually follow based on the success of that transition and that gradual rollout. Another issue that came up several times is the concern about childcare, and what do staff members and what do residents do if they have issues with childcare during a distance learning approach? How do I go to work when my kids are at home, and those kind of things? And the same thing with several of our teachers who may have kids, young ones who may be home based on their own district if they don't live in town, and what those concerns would be. So we've been working with the BEC to hopefully provide some assistance to both teachers and residents. So I had a couple of meetings with Kelly Canoia from BEC, and the town manager and I spoke as well. And we're hoping to roll things out over the next week or so to have some assistance offered to teachers and to residents through BEC that can provide childcare services if needed. So that's something that's in the works. We'll have some more information on that as it further develops. A couple of other things I just wanted to clear up. In our distance learning model, our teachers would be returning to our school buildings, and they would be teaching virtually from their classrooms. So it would the virtual learning, distance learning plan would more closely resemble a regular school day with teachers teaching from their classroom. And some of the rationale behind that is in order to reopen our building successfully, the first step is to bring the teachers in and make sure that the teachers are comfortable and are safe, and that we can reopen the building for teachers and then start to gradually bring kids back. But the teachers would absolutely be returning to school buildings. I had some folks comment about this decision is driven by teachers who just want to stay home. I can tell you that is 180-degree off target. That is the furthest thing that could be from the truth. Our teachers want to be in school. Our teachers want kids to be in school, and they want it to be done safely. The other thing I wanted to mention, when kids return, regardless of when that is or what that looks like, if it's in a hybrid model or a full return or a partial return, things are going to look differently than what we experienced in February prior to everyone going on distance learning. Keep in mind that with the rules and regulations that we have to follow to bring kids back, that I'll just speak about elementary grades. Kids will be staying with their class for the majority of the day, in their classroom for the majority of the day. Kids will be socially distanced between 3 and 6 feet most of the day. They'll be wearing masks all of the day with some mask breaks built in there. They'll be assigned particular bathrooms to use with cleaning schedules in there. They'll be eating lunch with the same group of students every day. There'll be space between lunch tables appropriately. It's going to be a different atmosphere and a different world. I don't want people to think when we go back to school, kids are going to go back the way they always have. So I'll give you one quick example would be recess. What would recess look like in, in this new age when kids are coming back? So recess would be a great time for kids to take their mask off and have a little mask break. But in order to do that, each stable group has to be at least 14 feet apart. And each child in their recess pod would have to be 6 feet apart from their classmate. So as we've all seen the recess yard before, that's going to be very difficult to accomplish when you have younger kids running around, and typically in recess, they're on playground equipment. We may not be able to use playground equipment. Typically they're playing tag or running around or in close proximity with each other. And those are the kind of things we're going to have to limit. And that extends into the classroom. We're not going to be able to do traditional group work where kids are sitting close together and doing group work. So it will look very different. And I think that some folks are having a misconception that when you say kids are going to be back in school, that it's going to be back to school like it was, kids wear masks and everything else is the same. It's not. Things are going to be dramatically different. And I just want people to be ready for that. It's a new era that we're in now, COVID era, where we have to make sure that all the proper protocols are followed, and we have the staff to be able to do that. So I just wanted to go over a couple of those things to clarify and talk a little about next steps. So I'm going to ask that the committee table the vote on the distance learning, and then we have a meeting on Tuesday. And what we'll be doing in the meantime is looking at every possible way, every possible solution to address a way to bring some kids back if possible. It may not be. We may be here next Tuesday voting on a distance learning plan again, or we may be able to find some way to rectify budgetary issues with safely bringing kids and student and staff back. I don't know. But we're going to take one last look at everything, wait for the governor's announcement on Monday, and then I'll present whatever we have to the committee on Tuesday for approval. In a week's time, we could be looking at our distance learning option with a budget and an associated cost with that, or we could be looking at some type of partial and hybrid model, and I'll present an associated cost with that as well. And then the committee ultimately will have a decision to make on what school will look like in the fall. But I think at this point, the smart move is to wait until the governor makes an announcement on Monday, and then to reconvene. We'll give it one last chance to see if there's any way we could bring more kids than we had originally planned to bring in September and build that up, possibly as some kind of hybrid model or some kind of partial model. But at this point, again, I think the smart move is to wait till the governor makes an announcement on Monday. Let us work on fleshing out some plans, see if there are anything else we can do to bring more kids back into a building, and really focusing on the population of kids that need it the most to be back with teachers in-person learning if we can. And it's a real possibility that next Tuesday I'm back in front of you and we're having a similar meeting, and I'm saying, I'm sorry, we can't, we have no option. We have to go distance learning. We can't safely bring kids and staff back. But I think having another week to investigate things and look at things might be a good idea, and may provide some more clarity for us at this time next week.
Dr. Solito, can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
You may not have the answer to this, but when you were speaking to the governor's office, did they allude to the fact that she may push out the date again as to when she makes the decision?
They did not mention that in the call today. They did mention a possibility of things like a staggered start if districts wanted to bring certain kids in at certain times or certain grade levels at certain times, that might be something that would be considered. But nothing about pushing the date back to a later start. That was not discussed.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a vote that we postpone the vote on the school year and distant learning until next Tuesday, special meeting.
Second.
I'll second that.
Motion by Dot Cotton to table the vote on opening the school year and distance learning, with a second by Don Allen.
Yes.
Any discussion? Dr. Salito, does next Tuesday give you enough time, not actually knowing what the governor is going to say at her special meeting, to work on new plans? And I mean, Monday, we don't know what she's going to say. It could be something totally different from what we're thinking.
Yeah, it's a great point. I appreciate that. I think it does, only because I know there are certain things we can't do, regardless of what the governor says. There are some options that for example, a full K through 12 return where all kids are back in school every day is, for us right now, an absolute impossibility. Budgetarily, logistically, we can't do that. So, those kind of options we're not going to be even spending any time on those. We're really going to focus on what the distance learning plan would look like and what the associated cost would be for that, and then what a partial plan may look like and what an associated cost would be for that. Those at this point are our only two options, but we have some flexibility within a hybrid or partial plan, rather, what that would look like. So that would be where we're focusing our energies over the next week, and budgetarily how we can support each of those. But like I said earlier, it's a distinct possibility we're back here next week and making the same recommendation that we start with the distance learning model.
So it seems like most of our decisions have to be based on budget, correct?
Correct. And I think a lot of that is driven around how we can provide the proper resources. And when I say resources, I'm not talking about PPE or those kind of things. We're really talking about staffing, how we can provide enough resources that ensure adequate staffing so that kids are safe in the building every day and that our staff is safe every day. So if we have multiple buildings open, that means we have to have folks cleaning those buildings up to a certain standard. If we have elementary schools open, that means we have to have a full allotment of teachers to provide coverage and to schedule buildings properly. So those are the kind of the resources that we're talking. It's not, and when I say resources, I don't want people to misunderstand and think that we need PPE or face masks or technology. It's not those things. It's really about staffing that allows us to properly ensure the safety and the health of both students and staff.
Thank you. Any other discussion by committee members?
Yeah, Dr. Salito, based on what you just said, so regardless whether we're hybrid or full back, I just want to clarify, the funding is the same. That's what we need, and that's really I don't want to call it a hang up, but what's holding us up.
So right now, we'll work on developing two separate budgets. We have a budget for what the distance learning will cost us. That will be about $300,000 over last year's level funded budget number, but it will be substantially less than the 1.2 million that we had anticipated, increase that we anticipated through state aid. If we build in a partial return plan, I would build in a budget for that so that we would know what exactly that cost would be. And then we would need the town council to make a commitment to somehow fund those plans. And, the town council, as we have difficult decisions to make, they do as well. I mentioned we presented to them last week, and, they're very conscious of trying not to overburden families in town that are experience lots of difficulties over the past months. It's a difficult time. So they're in a very difficult spot as well, trying not to overburden taxpayers, but also trying to support the schools. So I think if we have a couple of options and the associated costs with each of those options, present that to the school committee, and I'll keep the town council and the town manager abreast of those as we develop that so that they're part of that conversation as well.
Good explanation. Thank you for that. Any other committee members with comments?
I just want, Dr. Salito, so what you said was, and that come Monday, once we hear what the governor has to say, we're ready to go with either plan. You're all set with either plan?
I will be, but not quite today, but we will be by Monday.
Yes.
By Monday?
By Monday, we will be.
Right. And we'll know some numbers by then also?
Yes. And ultimately, it's the authority of the Borrowville School Committee to make the decision on what the reentry is going to be. It's not the authority of the governor.
Right.
They could say that, we're not going to be supported in different areas or in different ways, but it's really the authority of this governing body that it's up to you folks to really make that decision. I will make presentation on Tuesday, and then the committee can decide what's in the best interest of the town and of the students of Borrowville.
But would there be a chance then that we could lose some of our state aid if we don't go, if we don't take the advice or the recommendation from
It's
the governor's office?
it's highly doubtful. I won't say that it's impossible, but it's
Doubt it.
I don't see that happening, but I can't say that it's an impossibility. I know that when Warwick made their decision a few weeks ago, that was something the governor said publicly, that she would look into all avenues, and that she, considered that was a poor decision at that point. But I think by looking at other options for a week and then developing some plans and then going from there, that builds in a little bit of goodwill, because we're trying to make the best decision that we can for our kids and for our town. And I think if we keep at the forefront of our thinking what's in the best interest of our students, then I'll argue that fact with RIDE and with the state any day of the week. If we make a decision that's in the best interest of our kids, then stand behind that decision. And if RIDE wants to, or the governor's office wants to debate that, I think then we can have that conversation. But I don't think that, getting back to your question, Terry, I don't think that it's a realistic option, but I can't say that it wouldn't happen. I guess it's possible. I would hope they wouldn't do that. I think that withholding state aid does nothing but hurts kids. And I would hope that the state and the Department of Ed or the governor's office wouldn't do something like that.
Well, I'm just thinking that the reason I'm saying that is because if we don't go back to school, K through 12 don't start going back to school in September, then, is it a possibility that they're going to say, well, they don't need as much money as, say, this school that's going to go back to full learning?
So the state aid formula is built around our average daily membership, and typically that's run in March. So it goes strictly by your per pupil allotment and how many kids you have. And there's a formula built into the poverty of the town, and that's tied into the state aid formula. But it's really around how many kids are enrolled. So if our enrollment stays about the same, then it shouldn't impact our state aid all that much. But do they have remedy legally to say, this town, Burrillville or Warwick or whatever the town may be, defied what the governor recommended, so we're going to withhold state aid? I think that's more of a question for our attorney. I did put a call into him today, but he must have been tied up. He hasn't gotten back to me yet.
Okay.
I just want to say something. I just hope that this politics does not get in the way of this. And I have been researching some information on children and COVID. And there are two studies, and I will give that to you. Sorry. And I will give that to you. And so maybe that the rest of the committee can review them. There are two studies that have come out. One was August 10th and one was August 20th. And the August 20th one is from Harvard and Massachusetts General. And it talks a lot about kids and how they spread virus and how they're susceptible to the virus and the long-term effects of what happens with children in the years to come after COVID. And it also talks about, let me think, I just lost my train of thought. It also talks, I have some information on for parents and how they can identify it and work with it and help their children if they come down with it, and what they can do at home. So I will give you that. I'll bring that over to the office and you can decimate it. You can share it with everyone.
I just have a couple
Anyone
else? Questions, Mark.
Yes, Alex.
My first one, Dr. Solito, is so is it mandatory for teachers to be back in the building to teach in the virtual model, or is that an option for them?
It will be mandatory unless there's a medical condition that precludes them from coming in. So if they're medically excused, then that would be allowed. But other than that, yes, every teacher should be in
That's the expectation. Okay.
The expectation.
And then my only other question right now is I know we've worked really hard to prepare and finalize the online academy for the distance learning and teaching model. Is there anything that we could do proactively in the next few weeks as we're waiting for the governor's mandate or decision if she does push for us to go back, just in terms of prepping, because we're only giving teachers about a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah. I think if the Borrowville Distance Learning Academy is, if we end up going in a partial mode and there are some students that are staying home, I think we have a good understanding of what that's going to look like, but we still have some work to do. Just keep in mind that kids don't start till September 14th. So we would have a little bit of time there, and we've got 5 front-loaded professional development days for teachers during that first week of school that we could work on that as well. I also, pending what the governor says on the 31st, if it looks like we're doing a partial model, we would reopen the registration for any parent. I know we had 620 students that had signed up for the distance learning academy, but we would open that up again for any other parent who wants to sign their child up.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Dr. Salito, just
Yes,
a couple of quick, or Dot, did you want to say something?
no, go right ahead, Don.
Okay. I thank you for elaborating a little bit on the model of sort of a staggered return for students. I think that was maybe lost on a lot of people. I think that speaks pretty loudly to making the effort to return to a full classroom setting as best you can. I think that's probably the smartest way to do it. And I think that might even serve as a model for other districts, because that to me encompasses the budgetary issues, but then still allows students to return to school in a sort of a managed fashion. I think that was a smart move, and I appreciate you getting into the details on that. I find it very unfortunate, that the General Assembly hasn't made any efforts to sort of give us any guidance about what the money would look like, because that certainly falls on their shoulders to help develop a budget and give us some guidance. We've been left to our own devices, if you will, between the town council and school committees to have to come up and bear the burden of figuring out how do we do this and with all these unknowns. So hopefully the governor gives us a little bit of guidance on that. We take this one step at a time, I guess. But so I'll look forward to hearing what we have to do on Tuesday, and we'll take it from there. But thank you again for your hard work and everybody's hard work, because it's a tough spot. It really is. And I think the health of the kids comes first, and there's a balance there too. When we send them all back and they're obligated to maintain distance and wearing masks, and that's an uncomfortable situation for kids too. So I think this is the balance that makes the most sense to me right now. But we'll see what happens with the governor's announcement on Monday. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dot?
Thank you. Donison pretty much asked a couple of things that I was going to talk about. One of the things I'm concerned about is the health and safety. Under health, I know it's very difficult keeping everything sanitized at all times. Are you going to have to bring in more people to do sanitizing of things? And also, one of the things that a lot of businesses and corporations and other schools are doing are taking temps as people walk into the building. Is that something that you have thought about and maybe planned on doing, so that a sick person who doesn't realize that they are not well will not be allowed to spread the COVID virus?
So good questions. Let me start with the custodial piece and the sanitizing and the maintenance piece. So depending on what mode we come back in, if it's a limited mode, partial mode, the full return mode from K through 12, the main reason, or one of the main reasons that is unrealistic for us, is that we would have to hire more custodians than we could find, and certainly more custodians than we could afford, to make sure all of the buildings are sanitized at the proper level. We just don't have the staffing to do that, and we don't have the budget to. We would really have to double our custodial staff or close to that. In a partial model, if some buildings are open and some buildings are closed, we could reassign custodians that are in a building that's not open to the buildings that are open. And we have a schedule built into our different plans. So some plans we can do that. We can provide enough sanitation and coverage with our existing staff. We would provide some overtime. We would provide some other abilities for them to be a little more efficient and reassign some folks. But other modes, like a full return mode, it's just unmanageable. As far as taking temperatures, what we have built into our plans is a self-assessment in attestation form that parents would have to take the responsibility of making sure their children are screened and that they're not showing symptoms, that they don't have a temperature, those kind of things before they come in. And then we have all kinds of protocols for any student who does show symptoms or signs of being sick through our school nurses and having an observation room. And it's a lot of detailed guidance that came from the Department of Health on how we should be handling that and what we should be doing. I would be a little hesitant to begin taking temperatures of everyone coming in the building, only because I personally see that as almost an infringement on people. If you're coming into a building and you're saying, the parent is saying, my child is not ill, he's fine, he's going to the building, I think we have to put some trust into that. I wouldn't want someone taking temperature of every kid as they get off the bus. I don't know who would do that. And is just taking a temperature, is that enough to say someone has a symptom, particularly with younger kids who may be running around before they're getting off the bus? Or hopefully not, because we're trying to tell them not to run around, but kids being kids, that's what they do.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Dr. Salito, I just have one more. Just looping back to my initial question about teachers being expected to be in buildings to teach. I'm just getting additional inquiries about that. So is there any way you can explain in a little bit more detail the thought process behind that? I know you had touched upon it, but I just want to make sure that the reason we're expecting teachers to be in buildings is
Sure.
clear.
So we want to open all of our buildings and gradually bring kids back, or depending on what model we have, but our goal is to bring kids back into schools safely and to put them in their normal classrooms and to do that safely. We can't do that unless teachers are in the building. I mean, that logically is the first step. So I think it makes sense to have teachers in the building teaching virtually from their classroom. And again, it's really the first part of the process. We can't ask kids to come in the building if we don't have teachers in the building. And there's upgraded internet access that we have in all of our buildings, so it eliminates any kind of issues that someone may have from home. There's any kind of equipment is in a school building. It would provide for resources that are in the building. It really would most closely mimic what an in-class experience would be by having the teacher in the classroom. And again, it goes back to, if our goal is to bring kids back in buildings and have in-person teaching and learning at some point, we have to start with bringing our staff back in the buildings. Does that clarify?
Yeah, I received a follow-up question, so I just wanted you to share additional detail.
Thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Anyone else? I think that it should be mentioned, and with what Dr. Salito had said on it, this is encompassing every day, every minute of every day that he comes with changing plans and making plans. I think that the teachers and support staff and the custodians should be commended for their willingness to work with the administration. I mean, their plans changing every time Dr. Salito's plans change. They want to get back in the classroom. They want to do what's right for the district and for the community. And so I think that's commendable, and it's commendable to the parents because they've been on the same roller coaster ride as everyone. So everybody working together for the benefit of the students and their education, and we'll get it done properly. So thank you, Dr. Salito, for all your comments. So I think with this,
We
we'll
need to
take
take
a
the
vote.
vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Anyone-
Excuse me, we're voting on tabling this?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, anyone opposed? Having none, now we'll move to the public comment portion of the agenda, and I would ask that people comment, say their name and address. Try to keep your comments
Mr.
within.
Chair, may I interrupt?
Sure,
Should we do the personnel first before we go to public comment?
that would be fine with me. Dr. Salito?
Sure, I think we would need to vote to take the agenda out of order before we do that.
Well, we had already a vote to take the agenda out of order for this public comment portion. So, and that would mean, so how would you go about changing the vote from where we wanted to do public comment to changing it from item 4 to item 6?
Just like that. We just need a,
Too easy.
you just need someone to
So
make.
moved. So moved.
Okay, so I have on a motion by Dot Cotton to move public comment to item 6. I have a second by
Sylvia.
Sylvia St. Pierre. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Anyone opposed? Having none. Personnel, recalls, leaves of absence, resignations, appointments.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the following leave of absence. Kathleen Henry, speech language pathologist at Austin T. Levy, effective September 4th of 2020 through February 1st of 2021, revised.
second.
I have a motion by Alex and a second by Dot. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the following resignations with many thanks for their years of service to the district. Audra Williamson, Library Media Specialist at Callahan, effective August 12th, 2020, and Elaine Sardella, Career Coordinator, effective August 20th, 2020.
second.
And a motion by Alex and a second by Dot. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the following recalls. Johanna Macaruso, music at Austin T. Levy and Callahan. Craig Boucher, physical education at Austin T. Levy. Emma Rogers, speech language pathologist. William L. Callahan. Meg Voyer, art at Borrowville Middle School. And Kimberly Vamesk, a library media specialist at Austin T. Levy.
second.
Motion by Alex and a second by Dot. All in favor?
Mr. Chair?
Aye.
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 Mr. Allen, under discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, are we, have we built in these recalls to the updated budget that we are asking that we sort of postpone a vote on? I'm not sure that I was prepared to,
I can address that.
yeah, because I just want to know where we stand with that, because I know you've changed some numbers and I wasn't clear that
So
that.
those recall teachers and those positions are part of the budget that we have prepared for our distance learning model, and they will be part of the budget that we have prepared for if we can put together a partial return model. And I have been communicating on a regular basis with the town manager this week in regards to that.
Okay, all right, yeah, I just wasn't clear. Thank you.
Anyone opposed? Having none, we'll move on. Appointments? Having none,
Accept, I make a motion to accept the appointments as presented.
I'll second it.
Do we need a motion?
That's for informational purposes only. That could just be a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
okay, on an amended motion by Dot to receive and file the appointments, and a second by Sylvia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
And you can put whoever you want for the second.
Love that, huh? Thank you.
Okay, now we will move to the public comment portion of the agenda. I would ask people wishing to speak to say their name and address. If you could keep your comments to, 2 minutes or less, that would be great, and try to limit the repetitive comments. You get emails, texts, and everything else from people, town parents, etc. The school committee members do all the time. So hopefully we'll hear your voices. So Justin, it's up to you.
And
Okay,
Mark,
But Alex?
Go ahead, Alex.
are committee members allowed to ask additional questions at the end if something sparks a thought in our brain?
Well, normally we would have committee on agenda items, but we don't have that for this special meeting. But if you want to text me later, you can. Me the question.
I'll definitely have a follow-up email to send, but nothing bad.
Yeah, I think follow-up emails would be better, Alex, for this.
And if we can just note, so anyone who wasn't able to join our meeting live, if you do have follow-up questions, please feel free to send them to any of the committee members or Dr. Salido so that they're addressed appropriately. We're more than willing to communicate with you.
Great, thank you.
All,
Back here next week.
all of their email addresses are on the Burrillville School Department website. Okay, so thank you everybody for this portion of the meeting, public comment. If you are attending the Zoom meeting, you can use the raise hand feature. If you dialed in via phone, you can press *9. Okay, Wade Richmond.
Good evening. My name is Wade Richmond. I live at 100 Nip Road in Pasco. I'm the father of a teacher, a grandfather of 4 school-age children, and a concerned citizen. I'm speaking tonight in strong support of what I understood to be the superintendent's proposal to begin school this year via distance learning. I believe wholeheartedly that this is the only safe and viable alternative at this point. I recognize that while necessary for public health and safety, beginning this school year via distance learning may be extremely difficult for working parents. Lack of support for working families, however, is a society and governance failure, not the school committees or school systems failure. Districts throughout this state, and in fact, much of the country, are simply not prepared physically or financially to support reopening. 6-foot separation between people with desks facing front and plexiglass dividers, wearing masks in inadequately ventilated classrooms will result in stressed out teachers, students, and administrators, no group work or collaboration being possible, people who can't really hear or understand each other, instruction that many kids can't access or process, and a failed experiment. Worst of all, we'll be doing so while knowingly risking all of their lives. There are some who would assign blame for this situation to our teachers, but nothing could be more misguided. These are the same unsung heroes who were praised for having come up with on-the-fly distance learning programs last March, and they did so within only a few days and while they were supposedly on spring break. These are the same caring individuals who orchestrated countless drive-bys this past spring to encourage the young people of our communities with honking horns, signs, and other positive affirmations. These are the same selfless professionals who frequently use their own money to provide supplies for the classrooms, clothing and shoes for kids who are needful, lunch and snacks for those who would otherwise go without. And yes, these are the same courageous individuals who would stand in harm's way of any assailant on school property. We closed schools in mid-March when we averaged 500 cases a day in the US, but just yesterday, there were over 36,000 new cases. We're wasting our time trying to get kids back to school into buildings at this point that are not ready, and we're simply in denial. Our state and national leaders have failed us by making impossible demands and setting unrealistic expectations, and I'm asking this school committee not to do likewise. Therefore, I would call upon our school committee next week to stand in support of what is simply common sense, stand in support of health and safety, of politics and economics, stand in support of our students, administrators, and educators, and vote to approve Superintendent Salido's recommendation to continue with distance learning through the end of 2020. Of course, that's graduated in, and of course, barring any unforeseen developments over the next week. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Justin,
Right now, there is no one requesting to speak. Oh, we have one.
okay, let them in.
Okay, Elizabeth Edens.
Hi, thank you. I'm glad I got into the meeting here. I wanted to ask, actually, this is mostly directed, I think, at Mr. Salito. When we do, well, assume
Could we have your address, please? Could we have your address?
you Snake Hill Road,
Thank you.
if we do go to full distance learning, if there is any consideration for having the students maybe at least once a month meet with the teacher one-on-one, there could be scheduled time slots that at least they could have some personal contact, something that would amount to no more exposure than what you'd get at the grocery store. I just wanted to know if there were any thoughts about this, because I think part of what made it work so well last year was that the kids already knew their teachers and the teachers knew their kids. It's going to be very different for kids to start off not having met the teacher, and the same thing in reverse, the teacher not having met the kids.
It's a great point and a great suggestion. I appreciate that. We began actually today with the elementary principals having conversations about what our beginning of the year activities and introductions would look like, and how we would have open houses where parents and kids could come in scheduled into the classroom to meet the teacher. So those plans are in the works. You're absolutely right, particularly with a new teacher and new students, that they're going to have some kind of connection to start the school year. But those things will be done through school by school basis, and through the particular teacher and the principal. But those are in the works.
Thank you.
Justin, can I make a comment?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, apparently I'm getting a few texts that some of the raise the hand, not to interrupt Elizabeth's comments, that some people who are raising their hands are not being recognized.
Okay, I do not have any raised hands right now when I'm looking at the participants for the meeting. If you would like.
Oh, there you are.
If you would like to, tell me their name, I can find them and unmute them.
Yeah, it seems like it's not enabled. I'm just getting a text from one of our town councilmen indicating that it's not enabled on his end. So I'm not sure if other people are experiencing that same issue.
Mr. Richmond had his hand raised, and it looked normal. So who is it?
Donald Fox, councilman, have you attempted to raise your hand?
Yes.
Okay, we have you there. All right.
Okay, you're unmuted, Mr. Fox.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, school committee members. I've participated in a number of these Zoom meetings, and usually there's a raise hand function either in the chat area or down below. And for the life of me, I've not been able to, I'm usually able to speak at any of my meetings, and I'm trying to find the raise hand here and I can't find it.
The town account is slightly different.
Okay.
You have to click on the participants where it says participants on the bottom. If you click on that,
yeah, I've clicked in there, and that's where I would usually find people raising their hand for our meetings. I scroll down the participant list right now. Of course, everybody's muted, as they should be, because I'm not allowed to speak, but there's no raised hands. And I know there are people in this audience who do want to speak, and they're not able to raise hands, as I have not been able to.
There, since you've been speaking.
Oh, there you go. I see Stacy, and I see someone else just popped theirs up. But I actually, if I were prior to this, was not able to raise my hand in that same area. I mean, again, it could be the technology. I'm always dubious about Zoom. It's owned by the Chinese, so I'm always curious about it anyways. But if you give me a couple of moments, I had a couple of, as I listened to the comments of the school committee, I wanted to remind, as just a lone town council member and a parent who has now a doorbell ringing, and I apologize. I want to remind the school committee that the governor's mandates are just that, a mandate, and they're not state law. I encourage the school committee to put forth a plan that works for Burrillville, Burrillville residents, Burrillville students, Burrillville taxpayers. While the town council may or may not be able to support the financial requirements put forth by the school committee and the school department, I respect the work that has been put forth with any plan that you put forward to us. The task that you all have been given in the last 6 or 7 months has been nothing short of impossible to achieve. I think you've been walking on quicksand for months now, and I applaud you for not sinking in and going in over your heads. You know, it was interesting. I was jotting some comments down, and you know, I know we're trying to think outside the box, and we're talking about custodial costs, and we're talking about how do we keep our rooms clean. And I know that the parents out there are looking to do anything they can, particularly those parents that want to see in-school environment. And I'm one of those parents who is encouraging in-school learning as a parent of students who I believe need it. And I respect those who feel that. I respect Mr. Richmond and any of those who else are out there who believe in distance learning right now. I respect that, and I want them to respect mine. But I'm thinking about, you know, what do we do? I mean, do we encourage our parents to bring in, to give their kids wipes so they can wipe down their tables and their desks when they leave? I mean, I think we should be looking at any option that we can right now to overcome some of these hurdles that the school committee and the council faces for funding this. In closing, I want to echo Donaldson Allen's comments about the General Assembly abdicating its role throughout the entire crisis. And while many of us want to caution against letting politics, as Terry, I think had mentioned earlier, get in the way, or maybe as Sylvia had mentioned, let's be clear that I think the ill-guided politics and policies of so many years has partially put us in this position that we're in now, where we have a state government that is inadequately funded to handle something like this. And as usual, the crisis is rolling down to the town level, and it's being, you know, put upon a school committee or a council to make these incredibly hard decisions that, quite frankly, we've elected state leaders to handle for us and to fund and to adequately protect those resources. And for over 8 decades, you know, we've had mismanagement at that. And I'm sorry to say that this crisis has put a spotlight on that mismanagement. And I'm sorry for everyone who's listening, everyone who has children involved in this, everyone who is a taxpayer who has to deal with this. This is what we're at, and I'm sorry for it. Think about it in November. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we're going to have Adrienne and Caroline Fox. You are after her.
Good evening. I am just curious to see if I understand.
I have the name and address clearly for the record, please.
Adrienne Clune, C-L-U-N-E, South Main Street, Pasco.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just curious, because I did miss the first few minutes of the meeting, having a difficult time gaining access. From what I understand, our regular school budget has already been cut and we weren't going to receive the proper funding due to the economic state circumstance of, you know, getting the funding from the state. Is that correct?
So just to clarify, we did not get a budget cut, but the anticipated state aid that we were anticipating on receiving on July 1st, we have yet to receive, and we may not receive. So there wasn't a cut to the budget, but the anticipated state aid has not come through.
Okay, so that being said, we're going to have a hard enough time within our keeping the schools doing what they need to do functioning without that additional money from the budget. So how would we handle the other unexpected costs that we were expecting to get aid from when it comes to COVID? I'm a little confused with that. If we're talking that we're already not going to get the proper amount of money, how are we going to make sure that they are safe? The schools are safe for the kids.
Dr. Salito?
So I think it depends on which plan we're looking at, and that's certainly one of the driving decisions that brought us here tonight about distance learning, is that right now, if we don't get the funding that we need, we quite frankly can't ensure that the buildings are safe for a safe return. And that's what brought us into this meeting to discuss the possibility of opening the year on distance learning. That being said, I think giving it one more week and looking at everything one more time and waiting for the governor's announcement and seeing if things further develop at the state level at this point is worth the wait. And then we'll have this meeting again next week. And as Ms. Clune said, if we can't afford to safely open, and our alternative to ensuring the safety of our students and staff is dependent upon distance learning, that's the decision we should make.
Thank you, Dr. Salito.
Yes, Adrienne, at some point, we're gonna have to make a decision, so we can't just keep waiting for the next meeting and waiting for her next decision, at some point, we are going to have to make a decision, because schools are opening. We need our teachers in on September 9th. We need our schools open on September 14th, whatever the model be. So we can't keep waiting for the next meeting. We'll give this Monday meeting a shot, but we have to make a decision. We don't have any time left.
Personally, I am actually all in favor of distance learning, just for the safety of our children, our faculty, and financially as a town. I don't think we can afford any more hits. That, we would have to cover those costs that the state hasn't given us the funding for. Just so you know, and I believe that the administration's worked very hard to come up with a viable plan for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, Caroline Fox, you're up. Chelsea Chamberlain, you're after her.
Good evening, Dr. Salito, the school committee, the BHS staff, and everyone else present here tonight. As some of you may or may not know, my name is Caroline Fox, and I'm the president of the class of 2021. I'm going to be voicing and speaking the opinions and concerns the student body has about this upcoming school year. I'm going to start off by saying no matter how the school year goes, it is not going to be easy, and everyone is aware of that. But my fellow classmates and I believe that making a full return to BHS in the fall is in the best interest of everyone, especially the seniors. The first concern I would like to address is the fact that the entire college application process is going to be practically impossible virtually. I know that our teachers and guidance will be willing to give their all, but we need the real in-person help from our teachers to help us write our college essays, fill out college applications, help us look at schools, help students with financial aid, and so much more. I feel that we will not be getting the real help from our teachers through virtual learning. Students are going to be feeling very alone and confused during this year's college application process. My next point I would like to address is the actual teaching through virtual learning. Once school became virtual, it was extremely difficult for me and my classmates to truly learn and understand the material given to us in our classes. I can only imagine the struggle of the students who are taking classes such as AP Calculus, AP Bio, and other rigorous courses where the immediate help and guidance from your teacher is so important and necessary. I know that our teachers and administrators did everything possible to make virtual learning the best they could, but it is difficult to learn through a computer screen, and it is difficult to actually grasp concepts without being able to get in-person help from our teachers. Not to mention the fact that without real tests or quizzes, a majority of the students would not even try to comprehend the material, leading to students not actually achieving or learning anything. In short, virtual learning does not motivate students to do anything except pass the class. I understand that the budget is not 100% there to meet a lot of the requests of the new school guidelines, but I do truly believe that there is a way to make this school year work. I can guarantee that students will do their absolute all to keep the school safe and clean if we return to in-person classes. I know that students will comply with wearing masks and even gloves if that will keep things cleaner. Students could also wipe their desks down after every use. Instead of hiring more janitors, the teachers could take cleaning matters into their own hands. Teachers could be responsible for making sure certain things in their room are cleaned every day or after every use. I am positive the teachers would comply because they do not want distance learning just as much as the students. Multiple bells could be put into place throughout the school day so the hallways are not crowded and social distancing is possible and enforced. Another idea I know that has been thrown out there already could be having 50% of students in the school at all times so that social distancing is confirmed. Another idea that could help maintain social distancing is having more than 3 lunches. This could ensure while students are eating and do not have their masks on, they can stay 6 feet apart. Something else that could be put into play is using the land plots within the school as seating for lunch, just so social distancing is easier to be put in place. I know that a lot of students and parents would donate picnic or foldable tables and foldable chairs to make this possible. My classmates and I want nothing more to return to school this fall, and we are willing to do everything and anything possible to do so. There are so many ideas and protocols that could be put into play to keep the school clean and safe. Another issue I would like to address are Borrowville Cte Pathways. These pathways have had so much money and effort put into them to give students the absolute best hands-on learning to set them up for careers in the future. These pathways have drawn multiple students from other school districts to our school, and they are crucial to the school. How are these pathways going to run if we are not in school? The construction pathway is not going to work virtually. The entire point is to build and construct things. The graphic arts pathway would not work either. The advanced softwares are downloaded onto the school computers, not the handed out Chromebooks. The biomed pathway will be more than difficult without having in-person labs. I could go on and explain how every pathway is affected by online learning, but I think my point has gotten across. The CTE programs are just another reason why we should return to real school. Online learning is not going to benefit anyone. I'm aware the concerns are for our physical health, but another concern that gets thrown into the mix with virtual learning is students' mental health. Staring at a computer screen all alone for hours on end, all day, every day, is very mentally draining to people, especially teenagers who crave and need social interaction with their peers. I have talked to countless students who have said virtual learning made them feel sad and alone, and made them care about their grades and classes a lot less. By the end of the virtual school year, most students felt drained and just wanted it to be over because it only caused misery and unmotivation. I believe that Burrillville can come together as a community and give their students a proper and real education, not to mention the fact that we could always switch to online if things in the school get out of hand. But for now, I believe that Burrillville should try. Burrillville should try to set an example for other towns.
Thank you, Caroline.
Mark, can I say one thing?
Sure.
Just a comment. Caroline, thank you for being so brave and speaking in front of 100 of us. That was very eloquently put. And I don't think I've ever met you in person, but you sound very professional and I'm very impressed. But on a side note, normally the full committee does have a student representative, and we don't have one right now. So if no matter what model we choose, if you could continue to keep us up to date, if you can join our meetings or send emails to the admin team or the superintendent, please do so, because we love to hear the voice of our kids. That's, one of the most important bodies of folks to hear from. So please just keep us up to date. We really, really appreciate you and your voice.
Thank you, and I will continue to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Justin.
Chelsea Chamberlain.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Chamberlain. I live at 1198 South Main Street in Pasco. I'm the parent of a soon-to-be first grader and the step-parent to a sophomore in high school. I would just like to say that at the beginning of the summer, when everything was a lot more unknown, I was 100% against distance learning, and my mind has completely changed since then for a number of reasons. Besides the obvious health and safety reasons, budget reasons that have already been discussed, I just want to point out a few things, that there are other potential risks and factors that go along with this insane world that we live in right now. And I really, really think that people need to consider what other risks might be posed to our children going back this early anyway, without even the CDC really knowing the nature of this virus and how it could potentially change, how it could mutate, anything like that. I also wanted to point out that with some point within the past 24 hours, I was actually just notified about it an hour or so ago. 9 other school districts in the state of Rhode Island have come together and said the same thing that Dr. Slido is proposing, to do full distance learning, because for many of the same reasons, health and safety, and they just don't have the money to do it. Also, as of yesterday, our governor released yet another version of new guidelines that the schools need to meet, which brings me right back to, I completely agree with you, Mr. Brzog, where you say we need to make a decision. It just needs to be made, because we can't just sit around waiting for the state to, I don't know if they're going to make a decision at this point. I honestly don't know. Are they going to keep pushing it back? I don't want that for my daughter. My daughter thrives on socialization. I will not send her back. Not right now, not with everything being so unknown. And I know a lot of other parents feel that way. I know there are a lot of parents that have a million concerns. One of the biggest ones that I have seen, heard, and spoken to other people about are parents that work full time and don't know what to do and have no other option. BEC may or may not be an option, but when it comes down to it, is anybody willing to risk their child's life based on statistics that we really don't know that much about yet? I'm not. I don't think any of the parents could do that.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Okay, Adrienne?
I just have one question in reference to what Caroline said. She did a phenomenal job. She brought up a lot of good valid points for the student body.
Adrienne, can I have your address, please?
South Main Street.
Okay, so you're the previous Adrienne.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just curious, like Caroline did a fantastic job expressing, the student body's feelings on things. My concern is she did say in there about, how she's certain the student body would make sure that, they followed all of the rules. What would we do to make sure that kids that are physically unable to wear masks due to sensory issues or autism diagnoses or respiratory problems, to make sure that they don't get bullied by the other kids, because it is so important that they wear masks. But let's face it, some kids just are not capable of it. So, I just ask you guys to keep that in mind as well. I mean, do we have a plan for that?
Dr. Salito?
Well, I mean, I don't think we can prepare for every possible scenario that develops, but we do have plans in place that would address, obviously, if a child's getting bullied, we have plans in place for that. Our expectation would be that all students who are capable of wearing a mask wear a mask. If there's a medical diagnosis or if there's a physical limitation, then obviously that would preclude that person from wearing a mask. They would have to be properly socially distanced, and we would, try to protect everyone involved to the full extent possible. We would hope that at the high school level, kids wouldn't be teased about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. That being said, certainly not something we can guarantee. And, kids sometimes can be mean. So if that happens, we would address it at a school level. Disciplinary action would be taken. But I want to commend Caroline for making the statements she did, because I think she's expressing the frustration that a lot of our high school students have, in particular our seniors. Senior year is a special year, and, we all remember, I'm sure, our senior years, as far back as that may be for some of us. It's a special time. It's a fun time that kids look forward to. And regardless of what scenario we return to, we'll try to honor that the best way we can in challenging circumstances. But those are legitimate concerns, and I agree. CTE programs that are focused on hands-on real-world application of skills are not designed to be taught in a virtual environment. And, AP classes that need direct instruction at a high level may not translate as well in a distance learning mode as they would in a class mode. We'll do all we can to support those depending on the model we have, and then hopefully, based on whatever decision we make next week, we can work on bringing as many kids back into the building as soon as possible, and most importantly, as safely as possible.
And just to add, Dr. Salito, just so Caroline and everyone else on the call knows, so I was in a meeting last week to discuss ways that we can continue to honor the class of 2020 and everything that they went through, and then talk through ways that we can honor and recognize the class of 2021, no matter what model we choose. So Caroline, just so you know, there are folks from the district already thinking that through, and we promise to make it the best experience we can for you.
Dr. Salito, excuse me, if you could, I think to Adrienne's last question, maybe if you could briefly explain the playbook that was given to districts by the Department of Health and the Governor's Office and RIDE.
So there are a number of documents that have come out that provide guidance. And the latest, one of the latest, we actually got two yesterday, but before that, the latest one was the Department of Health Playbook, which gave some guidelines of what we should be doing and following in case there's an outbreak, in case kids aren't wearing masks, those kind of things. So we have procedures in place for, based on our plans, pretty much for anything that can happen as far as a kid showing, a student showing signs or symptoms, or a staff member, and this would be addressed on a case-by-case basis based on that guidance, which may or may not change. It does evolve occasionally, and updated guidance is sent out. But we do have a playbook from the Department of Health, as Chair Brazad said, that kind of gives us some guidelines on how to address specific situations that come up that's related to health and safety through the Department of Health regulations. They also came out with a frequently asked questions guide that is, at last count, about 25 pages long, and a physical plant guidance document that came out yesterday. And they'll be doing some site visits to schools over the next 2 weeks to look at air quality and HVAC units and things like that. And then the playbook from the Department of Health. So there's several documents that are out there. We read through these and update our plans accordingly. And it's an evolving, all of our plans are evolving based on the latest guidance and recommendations that we get, but it changes all the time. I mean, like I said, yesterday we got two booklets and two packets of guidance, one from the facility standpoint, and then one more from a school level standpoint. So all of those things, the playbook, the guidance, the frequently asked questions, as they're fully further developed and as they change, we're reviewing those and incorporating those, and our principals are looking at those to make sure their schools are all aligned within the right guidance. But it's a daunting task in getting back to what we originally said, or what I originally said at the beginning of this meeting. These are decisions that are heartbreaking in a lot of ways, because we know how many kids are impacted by that. And as a committee, I thank you for your support, and I thank you for your commitment to the kids and the families here. And if we keep in our forefront of our minds making decisions that are in the best interest of our number one priority, the health and safety of students and staff, I think that's where we'll be best, where we will best serve the students and families of the town of Borrowville. So next Tuesday we'll be back here and we'll get to do it all over again.
Great, thank you. Justin, do we have anyone else in the waiting room?
There is no one in the waiting room. However, there is another attendee with their hand up, Claire Mata.
Put her on.
Okay. Hi, my name is Claire Mata. I live on Barnes Road. I guess I came in a little bit late, had a hard time getting on as well. Has anything been addressed about special needs children?
Yes.
Okay, I must have missed it. So
do you want me to give you a brief rundown of what the plans are for distance?
Yeah, I
learning?
would appreciate it. I'm sorry to have you repeat it, but I didn't hear it the first time.
No, that's fine. So with our distance learning model, we would roll that out with teachers beginning on September 14th and students beginning a distance learning model. And then our first group of targeted students that we would bring back under that model would be our highest need special ed students, special education students. Our high need population of kids would start before the end of the month. In September, they'd be beginning, and then gradually we would open the program up and transition more of our special needs students in. And then eventually we would move to other transition groups like kindergarten, grade 2, those kind of things. But our initial plan for distance learning would be to transition special needs students, and particularly those that are receiving direct services, into the school building before the end of September.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just give you my point of view. For me, I was disappointed. Well, I was disappointed that there's not a choice. I understand all the reasons why you're leaning in the direction of distance learning. I just want to put out there the difficulty for some children who are not able to, for one reason or another, not able to learn through distance learning. I've experienced it in my house. And to be honest, not only do you want to think of their physical health, you want to think of the mental health of the whole family. And that is an issue. It's because I think it's something that you don't see, whatever's going on in the home, you just don't see it. And there are families out there who are really struggling. And if we could, if you could have a choice to go back, for my children, I would send them back because they need the socialization. They need to be in a group. They need to be with their friends. The isolation, to be honest, scares me more than the absence of the direct learning. I want them to learn, but I also think that their socialization is very important and that their mental health is very important. And so is everyone else's. And I'm a, and what I want to say is that I fear the isolation more than I fear the virus, to be honest. Not that I want anyone to be sick, absolutely not. I don't want anyone. I think we should all take our precautions. I think we should all do what we can for everyone else. But I think we do have to think about the mental health of other children. So that's all I really wanted to say, just to put it out there. Okay, thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin?
Okay, Mary Lou Tupper.
Unmute. It's not Mary Lou Tupper, it's Eric, but because I couldn't get in, because there's only 100 people here. As a teacher or a resident in a parent of a student that went through this his senior year, it is awful, but I think we all have to consider, and I understand the whole mental health thing because I'm going through it. I hate teaching behind a computer, but I think the considerations that Dr. Salito has provided, and my dogs are barking, but I think we have to take into consideration all of that, because the mental health part, I agree with. I struggle with my son, and he barely graduated, even though both his parents are teachers. I recommend that everyone listen to whatever the school committee decides to do and that Dr. Salito decides to do. I forthright, like, there's no easy solution to this. There really isn't. I'm also a coach, and I struggle with that as well. So I think whatever they come up with as a solution, I think we should all embrace. My one comment though is, I think we should be able to have more than 100 people on here, even though this went way longer than everyone thought it was going to go for, and there's only 100 of us on here. I think we should update our technology a little bit, just so there's more than 100 people on here.
We'll work on that for next Tuesday's meeting.
Yeah. But my support's there, whatever you guys end up deciding to do.
Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
Thank you.
And Alex, thanks for all the support there with the tech.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's it.
Justin?
Mark, queue is clear.
Okay. So on our agenda, we don't have a committee comments on agenda items. And so if any committee members do have questions or comments from this meeting, please, direct them to the appropriate administrator or myself. And if you'd like to have that on our agenda for next Tuesday, just make that clear to Dr. Salito, and we'll put that on next week's agenda. But for now, we are on item 6.
Mark, before you make a motion to adjourn, just to clarify, so next Tuesday, September 1st at 6 p.m., we will have a scheduled meeting. That agenda will come out by Thursday or Friday of this week and be posted appropriately, but that'll be next Tuesday, 6 p.m., and we will have a Zoom link that allows for more than 100 people.
And Dr. Salito, if I could request that committee comment on agenda items be added to the agenda,
We will add that-
now.
We will add
And
that to the agenda.
Awesome. And if I need to fill out any form or anything, just email it my way.
Thank you.
Dot?
Thank you to all the people who spoke this evening. Well received. We know that health and safety and education are very, very important to each and every one of us. Thank you.
I was expecting you to say motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all.
everyone.